Hello again, everybody. Lance Russell and Dave Brown right along ringside. By golly, we're about ready to go with more big action.
Thank you very much, and welcome to Georgia Championship Wrestling. I'm Gordon Solie, your host, and we have quite an hour in store for us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Championship Wrestling at ringside. This is Vince McMahon, along with wrestling's only living legend, Bruno Sammartino.
Welcome to this week's edition of Mid-South Wrestling Television. I'm your host, Boyd Pierce, another outstanding card.
Hey, guys, and welcome back to the Regional Rasslin Podcast, where we talk the territories. I am Ray Russell, and this week we continue on our journey back to the 1950s, the mid-50s, 1955 to be exact, in the world of the Georgia wrestling territory, or territories. We'll see how that plays out. Damn outlaws. No, guys, we are going back again this time, picking up where we left off several weeks ago here on the Regional Rasslin Project for the Georgia War of the 1970s. But in order to get there, we decided, hey, let's tell a little overview of what was going on all the way up to the Georgia War to make it very important, very impactful. And I think we're going to see a very important player pop up today in the results. We're going to talk about him and a whole lot more. And in order to do that, I want to bring back on the man, my special guest co-host for this particular project. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Rick Fields to the program.
Hey, Ray, how you doing there? How's everybody doing this fine morning?
It's fine in the morning. It's the afternoon that sucks right now. We're in the middle of a very bad heat wave here. I'm assuming you are as well, being my next door neighbor.
Oh, yeah, we're expecting a heat index of 110 degrees here today. And we're a subtropical climate here in Charleston, West Virginia, but still, 110, that is just unbearable.
One famous man called it hard times, if you will.
Hard time, yes.
We're feeling the same heat, man. We've had it all week as well. It's been a rough go, but we're making it, as my grandpa used to say.
Yeah, I hear that quite a bit up this way, too. We're making it. Just stay out of the sun.
Yeah, well, hopefully everybody out there is having a great week and had a happy 4th of July, a safe 4th of July. Hopefully you still have all your fingers if you shot off any fireworks for the big holidays. But we are back, guys. We're back in the mid-1950s and more Georgia wrestling talk here. Rick, I want to welcome you back. I know it's been a little bit, but we're going to start putting these things out a little more often. I wanted to wait until I got you on the program. We've kind of mentioned this in a few past episodes. I've alluded to it, but Georgia Rasslin on my mind is going to be branching off from the Regional Rasslin Podcast. Now, up front, we're going to continue to drop some Georgia shows here on the Regional Rasslin proper and on the Georgia side, the Georgia Podcast. But eventually, the idea is to eventually move all of the Georgia product over to the new Georgia Rasslin On My Mind podcast, and we hope everybody tunes in over there as well.
Oh, that sounds great. I'm looking forward to it. It blows my mind that all this information and that we're finding and all these people are enjoying, and it's just, I don't know, I'm at a loss for words with it because it kind of, I don't know, it's kind of surreal, I guess you'd say.
Sure, yeah.
All this time,
right?
I've been looking at the Georgia results and everything since I've discovered the internet, just learning all this stuff and
putting them to good use. Putting them to good use. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right now we're learning as we're going. We're learning on the fly here some of these things. I'm glad that people enjoy it. Yeah, it tickles me to death.
Well, we've had a lot of feedback over the course of the last few years since Jamie joined and started Georgia in 1981, and now we're into 82. And I've been wanting to tackle the Georgia War of the 70s for a very long time. And with your help and research, the extra time you've been able to put in, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm very excited for that, but I'm also very confident in how we're going to be delivering that. But then we said, well, let's set the stage. And then as we got going, it's like, there's a lot of meat here. And obviously we're just doing an overview. We're picking and choosing what we're discussing here. But people are going, tell me more about this. Tell me more about that. And that's the plan, is once we get to the Georgia War and we tell the Georgia War, we can go back and pick and break down, a title history here in Georgia, or this, 1952, for instance, or something like that. We'll be able to go back and really dissect things that we've covered in an overview here. So stay tuned, guys. This is going to be a long, winding road down the Georgia way, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. But right now, we're going to go back to 1955, where we left off. And before we really get back into the results and talk about things happening, as we closed last episode we did together, Rick, I had a ton of names here I wanted to run over just briefly because these are honorable mentions of talent that we weren't really covering as far as the results go at that time, but they did come through the territory around this time here in the 1950s, and there's some heavy hitters here. But before we get into those names, I also did a little digging, and I want to thank some info courtesy of Becky Taylor over at legacyofwrestling.com. Now, we talked about Georgia proper, the Atlanta territory, but there are also some spot shows being ran quite a bit here, it looks like, in the mid-1950s, 55 to be specific. And again, I want to thank Becky Taylor for this information over at Legacy of Wrestling. But I learned that there were 2 cities running shows almost on the weekly, April through November of 1955, in Bremen, Georgia. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. At the high school gym, weekly wrestling show took place at that venue. And from July and through October, a bi-weekly show taking place in Cedartown, Georgia, at the National Guard Armory. So I had to do the geography. I went online, looked it up. 30-minute drive between these 2 towns. Weekly and bi-weekly like that. I'm assuming this was all run together. I'm not really sure what the thought process was out of this, but it was successful for a brief period, I would imagine, if they ran multiple months.
Oh yeah, and the best thing for the boys was that's a short trip, and in '55, as hot as it was, I'm sure they were packing these gyms and. Short trip, good payday, be home by, be home well before the sign off on TV.
Well, I tell you, yeah, exactly. The old sign off on the TV. God, man, talking, showing your age there, Rick. But I'm looking at these months, though. The 1950s running weekly here in that hot Georgia heat. And throughout the summer, man, and doing it weekly, bi-weekly shows, that's pretty ballsy. We've seen other big-time territories like St. Louis take a dive in the summer, and we've heard tell of the Fullers and what they would do in the summer because they weren't going to be drawing. So there's a lot of territories that wouldn't really screw with the summer, so especially in the South. But it looks like we were trying to run some shows here. Like you said, it must have been slightly successful for them to continue to run because guess what, guys? No air conditioning National Guard armories in 1955.
No. Matter of fact, I think places like the Keel probably didn't get it until the early 70s. Yeah, it's a lot of these places have air conditioning's way off for a lot of these buildings.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we're going to go back in time. We're going to start bringing up those familiar names and maybe not so familiar names, we hope, so we can help you learn, educate here as we have a little fun along the way. Going to make some honorable mentions to some of the talent that came through here in the mid-1950s. And I wanted to start with a name. May not be familiar with a lot of people, but a guy by the name of Sterling Davis, a.k.a. Dizzy Davis, who came here, some of these shows that I just mentioned too, Cedartown, whatnot, Dizzy Davis working summer matches here in 1955. And a lot of people don't realize Dizzy Davis, they say everybody stole from somebody, right? In pro wrestling, you stole it from somewhere, even if you don't realize
Absolutely.
it. I think a guy by the name of Gorgeous George did realize that he took some ideas, if you will, from Dizzy Davis, who was Gardenia, the Flower Davis down there in Mexico as well. So Dizzy Davis actually did a very similar Gorgeous George gimmick that predated Gorgeous George.
Now that's something that I didn't know about, and a lot of people, because when you look in the wrestling history in a lot of areas, being whomever's covering it, usually Gorgeous George is the first thing that they want to bring up as far as like the television era or anything like that.
Yeah,
and he pulled the thread. He pulled the thread of Dizzy Davis, as you said. Anything you think that is original or the first of its kind in the wrestling business, likely it isn't. It's just pulling a thread from someone else, and who knows? Dizzy Davis could have gotten it from somebody else, like on a Carney circuit or something, a long time before that, and it just hadn't been documented.
Well, you don't know. No, absolutely not. Well, they were born around the same time period, 1914, 1915, and I guess what people say, well, Ray, it could have still been a very happy coincidence, but my understanding at some point, these guys were living on the same block or something, and I mean pro wrestling era, I believe. So this is something, these guys kind of knew each other from going way back, if you will. So Gorgeous George taking from the guy who did it first, as far as we know. I'd love to know who was doing this gimmick in the 1800s if they lived long enough to talk about it. But you're right. George was here. He was still in his peak in the TV era, and that's what made him the superstar. The man who sold more TV sets, than anyone. Some say that was Milton Berle, but I mean, tomato, tomato.
Tomato, tomato, apples and oranges.
That is apples and oranges.
My money's with Gorgeous George.
Well, I think we're a little biased, but I would tend to agree. Even if I wasn't a big pro wrestling fan, I would much rather look at the Gorgeous George character than Milton Berle. But you hear stories about old Milty, Uncle Milty, and maybe some third leg, maybe, or something. I heard or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Is he a Fuller?
I heard he may be one of the original Welches.
No.
Hey, you talk about Fuller, and a lot of promoters came out of that Fuller camp, but another promoter was just a simple wrestler here in the mid-'50s, talking about Roy Shire was here.
Yeah, the professor. Mm-hmm. I'm sure at the time he was probably doing that. I know he would eventually go and pop San Francisco with Ray Stevens.
Yep.
Wasn't Ray Shire, too, at one point in Ohio?
That's right, Roy and Ray Shire, I believe. I think you're onto something there. Yeah, Roy Shire, he saw the goose. That was the golden goose for his territory, and he latched onto that. A lot of guys would do that. A lot of promoters are smart like that. But yeah, Roy Shire comes through here. All these guys started somewhere. Bob Shipp, there's a name that a lot of people probably don't recognize, but he spent a lot of time here. Basically, the entire decade of the 1950s, Bob Shipp, that's 2 Ps. He was here. He was doing a lot of work in the Georgia territory, as well as Mr. Europe, Andre Drop. He was a very famous bodybuilder, or semi-famous bodybuilder. Anyway, he looked the part, fit the bill, kind of that Jim Londos style body, right? Maybe not as over as Londos, but Andre Drop, more of a showman, if you will, than a pro wrestler.
And for people that think that the bodybuilding physiques in wrestling started with what you would call the steroid era, no. You had Andre Drap, and then it would go on. We have a fella coming up in the late 50s. It was a power builder, Don Anderson. And we've also, then it just goes into Sailor Art Thomas, and on until you get the Superstar Billy Graham.
Superstar Graham. That was a different world of bodybuilding.
Yes.
Well, we got some other guys here that may not be lookers in the ring, but they certainly were major talents around this time. We've already discussed this man, but Don McIntyre's brother, Bill Red McIntyre, he was here. Not only in the 50s, but he was going back to the 1940s here. Arthur Tarzan White. Here's another name a lot of people may not know, but former player, New York Giants, Chicago Cardinals at the time, turned pro wrestler. So we had a lot of guys do that when they could no longer get it done on the gridiron or in the boxing ring or whatever the case may be. They would turn to pro wrestling because it's a work. Yeah, we're still out there. We're doing physical contact, but it's more, well, let's just say choreographed, say.
Oh, yeah. A lot of them from Tarzan White on down the pike for one reason or another. Like you said, if the knees give out,
that's right.
Going into the wrestling business, you make your money.
Some of them do anyway.
Some of them. But there's some like Wahoo, Ernie Ladd,
right? First two that came to my mind.
Then you had some like Otis Sistrunk.
And Ernie Holmes.
Yeah. Also. Ernie Holmes. Well, yeah, Ernie Holmes famously fired on Georgia Championship Wrestling.
We got Scotland's Dano O'Shaker, a.k.a. Jack Lloyd. Dano O'Shaker. That was a name that used to pop up in the magazines, and I thought it just looked cool. It sounded cool. I was like, that's a cool name.
I did too. I did too. When I'd see that name, it would just hit me. I'd be like, O'Shaker.
It's like a Hollywood name, right? It's built for wrestling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And, of course, when I see Dano, I think Hawaii 5-0.
Okay. Book him.
Book him, Dano.
You think that's what they said here in the Georgia offices? Book him, Dano.
McIntyre, or Paul Jones saying that to McIntyre? Book him, Dano. Yeah.
There you go. So a lot of people are familiar with the cowboy gimmick. We have a lot of cowboys that come down the pike over the decades. Bob Ellis, probably one of the earliest memorable names. But before Bob Ellis, here in the 1950s and 1960s, there was Cowboy Carlson, Orville Carlson. I can see why he dropped the Orville from it. A lot of Orvilles back in the 1950s. I don't even know anybody named Orville, but we've got quite a few. And
I actually went to school with a lad named Orville. Of course, you had Orville Brown, and but Bob Ellis, probably in the 50s and 60s, was the cowboy nationally. He was nationwide.
Right.
Of course, Georgia had Cowboy Luttrell for a time there in the 30s, in the 40s, before he went to Florida. Right. And then we have Cowboy Carlson right here in between them.
So Cowboy Carlson, just another early in the line of the cowboy gimmicks here in the world of professional wrestling, but he does come through. He makes a little bit of a statement during his tenure here. We also see the ladies are coming through. Beverly Morris versus Catherine Simpson. Penny Banner, the beautiful Penny Banner, taking on Judy Glover on one of these shows I was scrolling through here. Then we're doing mixed tag matches again. We saw that just a little bit in the past, but we've got more men and women tagging up. We've got the Mighty Midgets back in town as well. So a little bit of everything, a nice mix here going into the mid-1950s. Oh,
yeah. And, of course, Penny Banner was probably after Mildred Burke. She was the one that was drawing the money down in the South. And St. Louis. I know she was there for a good while. They liked her there. Of course, she eventually marries Johnny Weaver. She just settles in. Later on, she settles in down in the Carolinas and stuff. But, coming in Georgia, she was young. She was very, very pretty. I do, I recognize Judy Glover's name, too, because she was one that went around the horn as well. She'd go around the horn. I'd see her in the big cities. Penny Banner, if you take Moolah and the Moolah's influence out of the equation, she could have been the champ. She would have drawn. For the women, she would have drawn well. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Penny Banner certainly could have drawn just based on the ads they could have promoted her with. She was certainly a pinup girl, if you will, of that time period, especially for the pro wrestling world, where some of the ladies, they were out there to be tough, mean varmints, if you will, rather than pinup dolls. But Penny Banner, I'm sure, based on the fact that she was in the wrestling business, could handle herself when needed. But that's just some of the names, though, I wanted to run through here. Everybody from Dizzy Davis coming through here to Penny Banner down the line. I mean, everybody's coming through Georgia. It's a hotbed right now. We've talked about in the past, and we're going to pick up where we left off last time, Rick. I believe we left off around the month of April, heading into the spring of 1955. We're going to pick back up with May the 6th. And why don't you tell them a little bit about what was going on in the month of May, 1955? Okay. May 6th of 55. Jerry Graham defeated Chief Bighart in an Indian strap match. Now, right at this time, this is when the specialty gimmick matches would start. Chief Bighart with the Indian strap. And then you'll have, next week we'll have another one. But what strikes me here is Chief Bighart in his gimmick match loses to Jerry Graham. That's an excellent point. Usually you protect the gimmick match. The wins go to the guy who's specializes in that. And obviously once he's specialized in it, you can lose later on. But to lose so quickly here, I mean, you debut essentially the Indian strap match, the best we've been able to see anyway in the territory. And immediately Chief Bighart doing the job to Jerry Graham, who is a world beater here. All right, man, moving along, you mentioned it. So the gimmick matches are out here for the month of May, and we come back around May the 13th, and this time Jerry Graham, not in an Indian strap match, but in a Texas death match. Yes, sir, and he falls short against Don McIntyre. See, what we know about Texas death matches through the 70s, 80s, 90s, they had a 10 count whenever, you take a fall, there's a 30-second rest period, and they started a 10 count. Right. In my opinion, and in a lot of others, that was just a way for someone to get out of doing a complete job. I'm sure in these times there was no 10 count. It was probably a pin, a little rest period until someone just couldn't continue, be it injury or anything like that. Right. A lot of times they put a sleeper hold on somebody, knock them out. I would imagine this Texas death match would follow the early pattern, and McIntyre did something, and Graham couldn't continue.
Right. Unfortunately, we don't have the deep details of the finish of a lot of these matches yet, anyway, or back here in the 1950s. But no, it's kind of interesting, though. You see Jerry Graham's, beating Chief Bigheart just 1 week prior in a gimmick match. They come back the following week in another gimmick match, Texas Death, obviously, the McIntyre-Graham feud that will never end. It's kind of like Ole and Dusty in a way. But no, we've seen various versions of the Texas Death match. I think the one of the ones that are on film, my favorite is the Dory Funk Sr. style, as you mentioned, with the 10 count, et cetera, because, you're getting more action out of that versus the WWF version of the Texas Death match where it's nothing more than a name on a match because there's really not a whole lot to it. But, we're going to fast forward here through the month of June really quickly. Look at just a couple of results here. June the 4th, you have. I appreciate you looking up the results for me. Featuring a show featuring Eddie Gossett, to feature Eddie Graham, Roy Shire. So we got a couple promoters on this show. Aspirations around Ace Freeman here, Reg Lisowski, the future Crusher, Art Nelson, Jerry Graham. Loaded show here in the month of June. Also in June 17th, you got Freddie Blassie scoring a victory over Jerry Graham. Boy, that's the... maybe not at this exact moment, but that is a true battle of the heels. Blassie scoring a win there by reverse decision. And June the 24th, you got Blassie back again, taking on the Crusher, not yet the Crusher, but Reggie Lisowski, and Blassie scoring another victory. So Freddie Blassie heavily factored in right now, scoring victories over some of the other top talent in the territory. And hey, it's another Crusher sighting. That's always cool.
That's always cool to see the Crusher in town. Here pretty soon, his partner in crime will be rolling into Georgia.
He certainly will.
Here very soon, and I don't want to spoil anything, but he suffers the same fate a few times as Crusher did on the 24th against Freddie Blassie.
Well, I'm going to have to read that to believe it because I just don't see the gentleman you're referencing doing a job. We'll just have to wait and see. We'll just have to wait and see if that is true or not there, Rick. But we move into July. This is interesting, and I love that you point this out in a note because this is going to come back to haunt us later when we discuss it. But NWA World Champion Lou Thesz battling Jerry Graham, scoring the victory, retaining the title, Lou Thesz over Jerry Graham. Graham, even in losing, we've seen him lose some big fights, high-profile matches over the last couple of months, and he's still there in the main event because that's just how important, how big he was to the territory, recently losing to Freddie Blassie on a reverse decision, losing to Don McIntyre in that Texas Death. But on July the 8th, Graham still offered a world title shot. And Lou Thesz, we haven't said that name in quite a while. This is the first appearance, as you pointed out, in a long time for the NWA World Champion to come to town.
Right. The reasons why we don't know. Maybe they just didn't want to book the world champion, or they just had a heck of a lot of trouble getting Lou. But as hot as it was in Georgia, it's been a long time for the world champion to be here. And to see him roll in here with Jerry Graham, like you said, he's lost a couple of matches, but his draw power, he's hot. He's the number one heel. Mm-hmm. And probably, as long as he is going to be in Georgia, he's either going to be a top heel or he would happen to turn baby, he'd be right under the McIntyres. He is household name. They knew he's a draw. And in Georgia, if you get that shot, it seems like they're showing up about once a year. Right. Something like that. And of course, that will change in the distant future. But right now, Paul, McIntyre, whoever, I guess they're content in having Lou here just sporadically. It could be the importance of the belt. Kind of like Memphis did.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think, some of these territories, and I wasn't there, I can't say this for a fact, but it feels like if they do well on their own, if they don't need the NWA World Champion to draw, we do see the more sporadic appearances of the World Champion coming to town, like Lou Thesz, because as you mentioned, and here are the results, we repeat these names a lot, and that's because they are drawing the houses right now. And you have a note here that Freddie Blassie and Don McIntyre, so Blassie and McIntyre will feud throughout the summer of 1955, and the blow-off, going to see McIntyre beat Blassie for the Southern Belt on August the 26th here. So we've got a big story going over the course of the summer between two of the top names, Freddie Blassie and Don McIntyre, the ultimate babyface, one of the ultimate heels of this time period. And so we don't need a lot of Lou Thesz coming through here. In summer, it's a little harder to draw, but with a story going like that, McIntyre and Blassie, I could see them doing pretty well, even with the summer heat.
Oh, absolutely. McIntyre, the big baby face of Georgia, and you have people to feed to him, such as Blassie, Graham, and their creativity over this period of time in 55 was to where, you're going to have people coming in throughout the loop. They love this feud. They want to see a total end to this feud. Yeah. And they're being so creative about it, it can draw on and on until the final blow off. The good thing about these feuds is you don't have to really think about a final blow off until someone like Blassie or someone like Graham says, well, maybe I want to try my hand in California or something for a little while.
Something different. Yeah, absolutely. Change it up. How can we miss you if you don't go away? But
exactly.
So we got a really heated rivalry there in the main event scene between McIntyre and Blassie. Check. But we also have something very interesting, almost a secondary main event star. I'm talking about Jerry Graham. So he's as equally as main event as those two names. But Jerry is not given the big heated rivalry feud locally. He's being fed the national names. Jerry Graham's he's the gimmick guy, right? He's working the Indian strap matches, the Texas death matches. They're sticking him in there, heel versus heel, Jerry Graham and Freddie Blassie. He's working the world champion Lou Thesz. So Jerry Graham is kind of the jack of all trades. He's whatever we want him to do. We have confidence in him. And so they start bringing in some of the more world-renowned stars from television. And even those guys start beginning to work with Jerry Graham here locally.
Absolutely. And that just shows the strength of the roster here in Georgia to have two guys such as McIntyre and Blassie. And then you have Jerry Graham, who you could throw in against anybody. Because you could have a battle of the bullies. Yeah. You have these people coming in, national names from the DuMont network, coming in to face Jerry Graham. And it was, it just shows the strength of the roster. And I don't know if rosters, around the horn had this kind of strength in the 50s. Of course, you'd have your DuMonts and stuff that just went on the national TV and created these stars.
Right.
But it seems like a lot of them are rolling in here to Atlanta and trying their hand. Like Verne, Wilbur Snyder. They're coming in here. They're going to work against Jerry Graham or Blassie. But mostly it's Graham in this time. It just shows to me the drawing power of a lot of these guys. And Paul Jones sees what we're going to see later. These guys are going to be world renowned.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And not only do we get, basically two main events on these cards because you got the McIntyre-Blassie feud, you also have Jerry Graham working numerous top performers that are even on, as we just talked about, the DuMont network and Stars of Chicago. But we're getting a lot of gimmick matches here, I noticed in the results. You put it here in your notes as well. We're getting scrap matches, Texas death matches, boxing matches. So we've got a lot going on. So I can see why they were still drawing well, even through, where the down periods in some of the territories, because there's such hot, big-time main events, being promoted here. And if you weren't into the feud of McIntyre and Blassie, you had all these gimmick matches to fall back on, world title matches to fall back on. So very good job by Paul Jones and company here in the summer of 1955. We're going to look at more of the 55 results, including you have here. I put this in my notes, August 6th of 55. Now, I mentioned this town, and I'm glad you grabbed a result from this. Cedartown, Georgia. That was the town I was talking about going bi-weekly here through the summer and the fall of 1955 at the National Guard Armory. On this particular card, August the 6th, you have Dano O'Shaker battling Art Nelson, and in your notes, you have a little bit about O'Shaker, who hailed from Scotland, raised in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. His big break in the business was in Chicago, the DuMont network, maybe, huh? He was relied upon to teach newcomers like Wahoo McDaniel and Bruno Sammartino. And we know Bruno spent a lot of time up there in Ontario, especially when he wasn't working for Vince Sr. and Toots and whatnot. But so it's kind of fun to see O'Shaker had a hand in maybe a little bit of the training of Wahoo and Bruno, getting them to learn the ropes, so to speak.
I'll tell you, I think they learned a little something off of him.
Apparently, at least how to strike a man between Wahoo's chops and Bruno's punches and kicks there.
Oh yeah. That Ontario pipeline throughout. It seems like throughout time, it was just overflowing with talent. We weren't quite aware of at the time. We didn't know about some of them that were from Ontario that were built from other places. But,
Right.
oh, shocker. Yeah, here he is against Art Nelson. And you're going to hear the name Art Nelson pop up in Georgia off and on for another 20 years.
A long time. Absolutely.
A long time.
Relive the glory days of Memphis wrestling with the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. Each week, we go back in time to review USWA Championship Wrestling from the 1990s, episode by episode. Join us for watch-alongs, behind-the-scenes stories, and exclusive interviews with people who were there and lived it. Whether you grew up watching it or you're discovering it for the first time, this podcast is your ringside seat to Memphis wrestling history. It's all a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Listen now at USWApodcast.com.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here. Lots of new stuff happening here at WrestleCopia, and I want to update you on everything going on with the brand right now. First and simple, if you haven't checked out our website at WrestleCopia.com, it's a great way to keep up with the latest episodes of all of your favorite Copia programming, from the Wrestling Memory Grenade to Regional Rasslin with the Territory Talk, the Wrestling Stoop with the legendary Bob Roop, Professor Dan Ginnity and the Pro Wrestling Academy, and all the other great podcasts from Gene Jackson, Bob Smith, Dave Dynasty, and the boys from the Other Ship. And of course, all of those programs also available at your favorite podcast streaming platforms. And if you want to stay up to date with everything going on in the Copia world, all the latest news, random thoughts, fun videos, pictures, and more, make sure to join the more than 33,000 followers over at Facebook.com/WrestlingGrenade. Don't be left out. Please also follow us at the former Twitter, now X, at Wrestling Grenade, and subscribe to YouTube.com/WrestlingGrenade. Would also greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review at your favorite podcast apps, guys, because every positive review makes our podcasts more visible in the algorithms, if you will, which allows us to continue to grow. Now, for those who have been asking about merchandise, WrestleCopia merch, you can find plenty of designs for our t-shirts, hats, magnets, stickers, coffee mugs, and more over at the TeePublic store. That is tpublic.com/user/WrestleCopia. And last but definitely not least, it's what keeps the entire machine going. I'm talking about patreon.com/WrestleCopia. Now with 3 major tiers and tons of Patreon exclusive next level content for our supporters. Remember guys, no subscription, cancel any time, but I think you'll like the content that we're offering there for any budget you may have. And you can sign up right now, patreon.com/WrestleCopia. We appreciate your support in helping us pay the bills to keep the WrestleCopia Podcast Network running and enabling us to continue to bring you all the quality programming that we offer.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
We'll continue to roll on here. August the 12th, we're going to open a show with Red McIntyre over Fred Blassie. We're going to bring them both back with partners later for the main event. That's the McIntyres, Red and Don, over Blassie and Wild Red Berry. What a team that is. Those guys would eventually both become, in completely different decades, managers up in the Washington, D.C. and New York City territory, owned by Vincent James McMahon. And that's kind of cool. Blassie and Wild Red Berry, 2 of the crafty heels of their era. And, of course, Don McIntyre, top babyface star here in Georgia, as we know, and his brother Red. So Red and Blassie open the show. We close it with a tag team battle. And they do that a lot here in Georgia. Save a little money, I suppose. Less wrestlers. We see a lot more guys working twice on these cards and whatnot.
Yes. And as you said, yes, it happens quite a bit here in the 50s where you'll have an opener. Honestly, you'll have a single match and then another single match and then the 2 single matches go in a tag, 2 out of 3 falls.
Right.
And, if you have 4 to 6 people on a card and you can sell out a place or, just, get a real nice attendance figure, that's good money. That's good money for the guys involved.
Absolutely, because there's less money to have that has to be spread around. So these guys are not going to, and they got to have the ability to draw the towns. And apparently Don McIntyre is that guy right now. As we continue on August the 26th, we see McIntyre again in the ring with Freddie Blassie, the feud that will not end. McIntyre defeating Blassie here on the 26th of August for the Southern title. So for the time being, Don McIntyre, they've traded the belt back and forth here. Also, September 2nd, Wild Red Berry over Royce Shire in a tournament matchup. Now, they do a lot of tournaments here in Georgia, and I'm not really sure what you get out of these things. Maybe the winner's share of the purse. I'm not really sure what the gimmick is. They don't really allude to that in the results.
No, and they haven't for, since they started these tournaments, they'll just say to win a tournament.
Right.
A lot of times, it is just hard to find out what this tournament's for.
Right.
They're not saying, like the Fuller's a boat or a Cadillac or anything, but I think we found the answer on the 9th to this particular tournament.
I think you did an excellent job sifting this one out. So on the 2nd of September, we talked about Wild Red Berry over Royce Shire to win a tournament. But fast forward a week later, and Wild Red Berry, the winner of the tournament, is getting a Southern title shot against Don McIntyre. So in this instance, I think you're right. You were able to sift it out here in Atlanta. Don McIntyre, the Southern champion, defeating Wild Red Berry to retain said belt. Now, you also have a note here. I did not have results for this one. Menlo, Georgia, which also took place on the same date of September the 9th. And Menlo had a 4-person crew working 4 matches. That had to be fun to see the same guys come back out time and time again. But now we're doing double duty, double dipping here on the same day.
Yeah. And, Georgia later on, of course, was known for running a spot show along with the City Auditorium or the Omni show.
Mm-hmm.
They had enough on their crew to where they could just keep them working. If they weren't booked in Atlanta, they could go to a place like Menlo or somewhere like that. And that's a luxury that some of the territories didn't have during the big, running their big towns.
Right.
Because their crew was so small. Here, McIntyre and Paul Jones has even a 4-person crew. I'm sure they drew because those 4 people got paid probably a pretty good bit.
Well, I think too, in all honesty, in regards to like the 4-man crew and a smaller spot show like Menlo, Georgia, obviously if you draw decent for whatever you're expecting, I'm going to imagine you're not expecting a whole lot out there, but if you draw pretty much what you're expecting, you go out there, you put on the show and you move on to the next city. But at the same time, maybe if the draw is low, maybe if nobody's really there and doesn't show up, you don't have to work. So I hate to say it, but you don't have to work as hard. You get in and out of there. You collect, the ticket sales from whoever showed up, and either you run the town again or you don't. You make that decision based on how you're drawing there. Or maybe we'll try to get in 3 months kind of deal. We've seen that a lot in the territories. They're going to give and I'm not saying they hadn't worked Menlo at this point in the past. That's not really a city I've researched, but we'll see if that city pops up again here moving forward. We're going to move forward, though. September 16th, Freddie Blassie defeating Don McIntyre to win back what he would call his Southern title in a Texas death match. So we continue this story. I'm still waiting for the big infamous fence match here between these two because they've done pretty much everything but that at this point.
Yes, they have. So here they are. They're playing ping pong with the Southern title. This time Freddie gets the better of Don in the course of Texas death match.
Right.
I'm sure there could have been some chicanery involved. This being, of course, no disqualification.
Right.
Us knowing Blassie the way we do. There's probably wasn't a conventional pin. It was something that Don just probably could not continue from. I've heard everything in Texas death matches from leg cramps to just
well, there's the believability in that, and that goes back to wrestling is real here in the 1950s. Or at least for the better part of most territories, wrestling was treated as real here in the 1950s. and there was not a lot of winking and nodding going on. And so, yeah, absolutely, you could get away with that in the old territories, the leg cramps. These were believable things. We've seen that happen, say, in the NBA playoffs or an NFL game, or if it's too hot outside, we see a player go down due to cramps, usually leg cramps, like you said, and you got to go get the Gatorade and the IV and whatever else the case may be. But it was a thing, and it's believable. You go out there and you work for an hour, and you go hammer and tongue, brother, and obviously fans would, you're bleeding, you're sweating. The fans are going to buy into these stories, and you do live to fight another day that way. Don McIntyre loses, but not by pinfall, perhaps.
Right.
So it totally makes sense. I'm going to continue to keep an eye on that in the results here to see how many more times these two are going to go at it, because this feud feels like I said, it's like the oldie and dusty of its time. It just doesn't go away, at least until Blassie goes away. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Exactly.
Here's an interesting one you have here. September the 30th, Whitey Whitler, who had to be at the tail end of his career, he'd been about 20 years in the business by this point, teaming with El Toro to defeat the team of Dano O'Shaker and Farmer Jones for the NWA Georgia tag team titles. So we do have tag team titles in effect here in the 1950s, and not a lot of territories had tag belts back then.
No, they didn't. The tag belts in the 60s is probably when they were starting to really pop up and everything,
right,
especially in the Carolinas.
Yeah.
Tag team territory. But, this is the first mention I've seen of the Georgia tag team title. And El Toro, who's been a regular in Georgia for a period of time. And then you have Whitey Whitler, who's, like you said, tail end of his career. You have Farmer Jones and Dano O'Shaker. So there's some credibility there. For Dano being on one of the tag team members in his history. So, here we are. We've got the Georgia tag team title. Now it's in the mix. So
we'll keep an eye on those, all the titles here in Georgia as we move forward. When they become more prominent here in the 1960s. Just kind of a little bit of an overview here and there of the belts. Obviously, the Southern title. We talked a little bit about that belt on the last episode. And again, we'll revisit these belts, when we go back and we're able to do a little deep dive into some of these title histories. And we can talk about that in future episodes as well. But right now, we're still making our way to the Georgia Wars. So we're going to continue on to October the 21st here. So October 21, Herb Welch back in the territory, drawing El Toro, also Don and Red McIntyre over Fred Blassie and Gorgeous George. There's a pair for you. I didn't have that on my pair there. I didn't have that on my bingo card for this week, as they say. But very cool to see the McIntyres in here with Blassie and Gorgeous George. No doubt that drew Herb Welch on the underneath. So Herb's going to be a prominent fixture here in the world of pro wrestling. Also, October the 28th, you've got Red McIntyre over Fred Blassie. That's Red, not Don. Red McIntyre finally getting a bone thrown his way over Blassie for the Southern title.
Yes. Red's been in the mix. Basically, he's a tag guy with his brother, but he has had shots at the Southern title and some other belts, some regional belts that's come through here. But on this night, October 28th, which would have meant my mother would have been celebrating her 7th birthday. And if she was a fan, she'd have been celebrating Red McIntyre winning the Southern Heavyweight Championship from the soon-to-be Hollywood Fashion Plate.
Well, it's one thing to win the belt, right? It's one thing to win the belt. It's another thing to hold on to it. We fast forward another week ahead. November the 4th, we talked about those tournaments. Here we go with another one, an 8-man tournament. The final seeing Eduardo Perez defeat Nick Carter to earn himself a title shot immediately after the tournament. Boy, you wrote in your notes, I hate these things. I was thinking same thing. I never understood it. And I can't say it's timely, but my son's been binge watching WCW. He made it through 95. He's into almost the tail end of 96 right now, but it's Starrcade 95. They do a triangle match, Flair, Luger, Sting. Flair goes over, and he immediately wrestles Randy Savage for the belt after winning the triangle match. And it works out for Flair because he's got the Horseman and he wins the title. But in general, I never understood the idea of this. You're winning a tournament, which means you've wrestled multiple times, 2, 3, 4 times, depending on the size of the tournament. And then you wrestle the champion without a break. It's not really fair. Bring it back the next week.
Right. Now, I've seen this happen so many times, and it's sickened me.
Yeah.
A lot of times in New York, they'd have a battle royal, And then the winner of that battle royal would go on to face Bruno or Backlund at the end of the card.
At least they would separate it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, that's the only argument I could put in favor of the WWF in that regard, because usually the Battle Royal would open the show, the world title match would be on much later in the show. But no, I'm with you. Why are we doing this on the same show? These guys need time to rehab and regroup and get their. This is the world title shot. This is their opportunity. You know, you want to be at 100%, and it's just not fair. And we're going to see what happens to Perez here. He's not going to win the title. After winning the tournament, it's Red McIntyre over Eduardo Perez by DQ. So maybe we'll bring it back down the line at some point. Maybe we won't, because we move on to November 25th. Now on the undercard, we have El Toro losing to El Toro unmasked. Again, we've seen him before. Bibber McCoy. This is not the first time he's done this gimmick, working under a hood and then getting unmasked here. He just won't go away, right? He just won't go away.
Well, he keeps getting unmasked, but he keeps coming back with a mask.
Well, A for effort.
Yeah, what would Johnny Walker say?
You got to get one good match. Well, maybe, Bibber just hasn't found the right gimmick yet, right? Maybe that's what it is. He's just got to keep coming back under the hood till he gets the right gimmick. Newsflash, Bibber. Happen, not gonna. But it's okay. That's fun, though. The fun little note there that happens on the undercard. But we talked about maybe Eduardo Perez is going to get a rematch here with Red McIntyre. Well, he's going to have to wait a while, because it's Fred Blassie on November 25th regaining the Southern title for the 827,000th time, defeating Red McIntyre. So Blassie he wouldn't go away from the main event scene. And it was almost it was very much Lawler-esque of the 1970s when Jerry would win back the junior Southern title, and eventually it would become obviously the Southern heavyweight title. But Lawler, the heel in the 70s, and that's kind of Blassie here.
Yeah. Well, when you mentioned the 870,000th time, that's the first name. That's the first name that popped up in my head was Jerry Lawler.
No, and rightfully so. I mean,
great minds think alike here.
Yeah, there you go. We'll close out the year. A couple more results for you guys. December 16th, Blassie still the champion, defeating Jerry Graham. And Graham had been gone here for a few weeks, couple months, whatever the case may be. Again, how can we love you if you don't go away?
Exactly.
And Jerry Graham is back, though. He won't be gone for long, and he's making them money. So you always want see Jerry back on the card, and he's back just in time for the holidays. As on December 23rd, just a couple days shy of Christmas, it's Freddie Blassie teaming with Billy Blassie, defeating Don McIntyre and Jerry Graham for this version of the World Tag Team. So now not only do we have Georgia titles, but the World Tag Team titles. Now, that was new to me.
Yeah, it was to me, too. I didn't think we would see something like this until the late 50s into the early 60s. But right now, the NWA didn't recognize tag teams.
Right.
Apparently in the 50s. So they just created their own version of the World Tag Team titles.
And Jerry they did it right here.
Yeah, right here in Atlanta. And Jerry Graham is a babyface. I guess he came back as a babyface going after Blassie. And now he's teaming with, his old adversary, Don McIntyre. Who knows? This could be a Dusty Rhodes Terry Funk thing, too. Like back in the 80s when Terry'd have to give up his watch or something for a bond for Dusty.
Yes.
But the Blassies are the World Tag Team Championship, World Tag Team Champions. And Freddie is with the Southern title, so Freddie has all the gold in Georgia.
That he does, but what really caught me off guard about these results here on December the 23rd, now Fred and Billy Blassie, I believe Billy Blassie was a guy by the name of Billy McDaniels. Is that the same Billy Blassie I'm thinking of here?
I think you're right.
Okay. I didn't know if there was more than one, because you never really know, especially back in this time period. But it's the team they beat for the titles who were named the champions going into this matchup. So this is a title change, if you will. But the team of Don McIntyre, your top babyface, and what we've been taught was one of the top heels in the past anyway, Jerry Graham and Don McIntyre teaming together here.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what makes it odd.
Right.
Yeah, just coming back after all this time of he and McIntyre going around the horn against one another in gimmick matches and everything, and then all of a sudden they're coming up as World Tag Team Champions.
And we're going to see a lot of those World Tag Team title changes. They're going to do it maybe a half dozen times, I believe, a year here while this version of the world titles exists. So they did that a lot in the territories, and I think a lot of people caught wind of that, and that's why we had a lot of tag titles developed around the Horn, because you couldn't change your top title. Well, if you were Memphis, or maybe here in Georgia at this point in time, you could change it quite often, but in a lot of territories, they would protect that world title or that top belt, the singles belt. But with the tag titles, they would shift it around a little more often. We know Vince, senior and junior early on anyway, would change the tag belts on TV. That was the title that would change hands on television. Like it wasn't as prominent as the world title, so to speak. So we would see that. And so here we've got more belts, means we can change more champions, and which means we can draw more money theoretically because we have more title matches to present to you.
Exactly.
And title changes always mean, you never know when a title might change hands, so the fans will come on down to the arena. As we come on down to 1956, we're going to kick off a new year here in Atlanta, and it's going to start off with Roger Mackey on January 6th here. Roger Mackey teaming with Jackie Nichols to defeat the Blassies to win the World Tag Team title. So the title changes, as I mentioned, it didn't last long, just a couple weeks here. Blassie switching the Southern title off and on. Now he's switching the World Tag titles.
Yeah, and that just shows, win or lose, Freddie Blassie's a draw. And here, these two guys here, Mackey and Nichols, they're main eventers here for about a couple of months, and they feud with the Blassies over this tag team championship. Mm-hmm. And as you say, if you can get these championships to get them over, people will come to watch because everybody likes seeing a title change. Sure,
and the tag team thing was still fairly new, especially because of television, fairly new to the world of wrestling as a whole. I mean, there were territories that didn't even do a lot of tag matches, unless it was just, like you said, like a spot show, you want to add an extra match, you bring the guys back and put them in a tag. But in general, this is a little more of a, hey, we got world tag team title. Now they're on the same level, I mean, hypothetically on the same level as the world heavyweight title, so to speak. I mean, they're not, but we can pretend like they are. So all you got to do is slap the word world in front of it, and here you go, instant credibility, so to speak. But you put Blassie and guys like that in there, and again, instant credibility with the names involved. It must be a world title because Don McIntyre held it, Jerry Graham held it, Freddie Blassie held it, but not at the moment here, moving into 1956. And you talk about Freddie Blassie, win or lose, he's a main eventer, and you can't kill the heat of certain guys, and apparently you can't kill the heat of Freddie Blassie right now. He comes back February the 3rd, and he does a job to Chief Big Heart. Now, Big Heart had lost to Jerry Graham in an Indian strap match, but Big Heart picking up the victory here over Fred Blassie in a strap match.
Yes, and I'm sure they have plans for Big Heart. He has been off and on in Georgia throughout this time period, working in the semi-mains and the mid-card. And here he is, getting a win in his specialty match. And Freddie Blassie probably just sold like crazy for him in this match. It seems to me they wanted to get Big Heart over, wanted him to really get over, and in a lot of cases, you just can't get over the booker. McIntyre was just that hot.
Right. No, I 100% agree with that. Yeah.
You're seeing Freddie these last couple of shows. He's on the short end of the stick, losing a title and then losing the Indian strap match, and likely the Indian strap match, you lost it clean. Clean as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Freddie going to do the job, put Chief Big Heart over, and that's kind of it's the telltale sign sometimes of a guy on his way out of the territory. He's doing what they call the right thing, putting guys over on the way out. Now, I don't know if Freddie's gone. I'm not going to look ahead and cheat for you guys. We're going to see if Blassie sticks around because he's got some big things coming on the West Coast and eventually even all the way over on the East Coast. So Freddie's going to make the rounds here and in Japan. Freddie's going to do a lot of things here.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're going to continue on now. You put I appreciate this as well, Rick. You put up a list here for me of various towns they begin to run on the weekly, on the bi-weekly, on the monthly. So this is what we would call a loop. We're starting to see a loop form. We've talked about a couple of cities that were picked up in recent years to work with the Atlanta office, but now we've got a whole lot more cities, and thanks to you, we're going to run them down just quickly here. Just some of the towns they're starting to work here. Talk about expansion of the Georgia territory. We're talking Barnesville, Georgia, the Gordon Gym, Augusta, Georgia, Bell Auditorium, East Point, Georgia, Municipal Auditorium, Covington, Junior High School, Madison Grammar School, Cumming High School, Commerce High School, Marietta, Georgia, the Larry Bell Auditorium, And this is why, and I'm not going to pretend like I knew this because Rick was on the line with me when I did that. I did a little Google search quickly. Who is Larry Bell, and why does he have so many damn auditoriums? Apparently, Larry Bell was an industrialist and the founder of the Bell Aircraft Corporation. So that explains that. Lots of venues named after Larry Bell, specifically here in Georgia. Speaking of, we got more venues here. Camilla, Georgia, the Mitchell County High School. Tifton, Georgia, the Tift County High School. Gainesville, Cordell. Is that how we pronounce that? Cordell, Cordelia?
Cordell, something like that. I've heard the guys talk about this. I can't remember. I'm wanting to say it's Cordell.
Okay. The only Cordell I knew was Walker, Texas Ranger. That's the Cordell.
Okay. The only time I really heard Cordell was from Charlie Smith. So.
Okay. All right. Well, we do have some of the smaller towns. Like, me and Jamie are covering Georgia in the 80s right now, and I think I've read one result from Tifton for that, So it's not like they go to all these towns all the time, but it's just cool to know that they're making the rounds. Irvington, Georgia here. Macon at the City Auditorium. Columbus at this time, the Sports Arena. Griffin, Georgia at the Field House. Got to love the field houses. And Moultrie, Georgia. Yeah. Moultrie at the high school. So wow, that's about, I think I rattled off about 16 venues or 16 cities here. And that's not counting Atlanta.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of these are going to be on a regular loop right up until they decide to do a northern expansion around 1980, 1981. You're going to have Griffin. You're going to have, Columbus, of course, Columbus and Macon, Gainesville, Marietta,
right?
And Augusta. And a lot of these towns here, they're not spot show towns just yet. I think they're probably bi-weekly. That just shows they're running if it's not a 6 or 7 day a week loop, and they may be running 2 towns a night like they did with Atlanta a while back in '55, and to have that many, and we're talking 1956, and
yeah, absolutely.
Like I say, a lot of these territories around the United States probably wasn't too, a lot of them wasn't running 2 towns a night.
No, I mean, I haven't researched a ton, going back to this era as far as the weekly and where everybody was running. But you have to imagine, based on this, the mid-1950s, when TV was really just in the big boom period as well. This is a hell of a loop that you're putting together here in the state of Georgia, because a lot of these promotions were not capable of being able to handle running so many cities in such short periods of time. So kudos to Paul Jones and company for really getting things going. Talk about a machine here. No wonder Atlanta was such a success moving forward in the TV era. As we continue on here into 1956, we're up to March the 12th, and you found us a mixed tag main event. Now, only 6 people on the entire card, but on the card, a mixed tag match with Jack O'Brien and Catherine Simpson defeating Beverly Morris and Jackie Nichols. 2 out of 3 fall match. Obviously, got to stretch that with only 2 matches on the card. The other match, Rocky Colombo over Great Malenko. That's an early sighting there by disqualification.
Exactly. Yeah, here the Great Malenko is going to play into a lot in the wrestling business. Right on through. We're talking the main heel in Florida that had some real bloodbaths with soon-to-be Eddie Graham.
Right.
And then, of course, he plays into Knoxville, plays in the Mid-Atlantic. He was the first manager of the Masked Superstar, who plays in big time here in Georgia. And, of course, he has a couple of sons that did pretty good for themselves, I believe.
Oh, yeah. I've heard some things. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. One guy was... One of those little snots was number 1 in the PWI 500 97, I believe.
And I was on board for Dean Malenko, but when I saw that, I was like scratching. I'm like, I don't know what happened to this here. How did this go? Maybe there was a mistake, because to see Dean at number 1, but not that I was against it. I was a giant Dean Malenko. In fact, my son, he's seen bits and pieces of Dean, but being able to, as he's been binging the WCW, being able to watch Dean from the beginning there, the fall of 95, and now he's into the fall of 96, he's like, oh my God, this guy's just awesome. But not only that, he's like, everything he does looks like he's killing the guy that he's in the ring with. He's just a nasty wrestler, but just so awesome was the man of 1,000 holds. And his brother doesn't get as much kudos because his brother did most of his work over in All Japan, the high profile stuff. Anyway, Joe, but Joe just equally awesome in the ring as Dean. They're just a great tag team. If you guys can find any of that footage, go check it out. I'm sure over time, me and Dan Ginnity will be covering a lot of that moving forward there in the Pro Wrestling Academy. But yeah, we go back here. And so Jamie Ward and I, we talk a lot in the 1980s. I read the house show results and usually about 5 matches on a card. And Jamie's always debating. I'm sure there were a couple of enhancement matches that nobody wrote down. I said, no, Jamie, this is the card. And people are arguing, well, 5 matches, that's not a lot to come out to the Augusta or Columbus. But look back here in the 1950s, guys, 2 matches on the card, and I'm sure they did quite well here. And a nice mixed tag, a gimmick match, if you will. It's funny, too. You noted here, for the next couple weeks through the March 26th show anyway, they held cards very similar to the March 12th card. 2 matches on the show. One of them typically a mixed tag team match I see here, and basically the same ladies coming in every time. We might mix up the gentlemen involved sometimes, but so it's kind of interesting that they're basically making the rounds. We would see ladies like Wendy Richter or Velvet McIntyre or whomever. They would come to town. We would have the ladies match, maybe a mixed tag on TV or at the house show, but it was basically they were in town for the week, so we're going to promote them in that type of match all week. And it looks like the ladies were in town here for a couple weeks, and that's what we do here. Yes.
And they would continue to do that through, in the Fred Ward towns, in particular, through the late 70s. I'd see the clippings like on the old magazines. I think it was Gene Gordon. You would see Bill Dromo and one of the ladies against Frank Morrell, the Angel, and another one. And, yeah, they were doing that through about 78, 79. It must have been a hit. You know, and it was something different, too.
Right.
You know, you come through every so often with a mixed tag. You know, you'd have Dromo and Angel, and then you'd have, say, Velvet McIntyre and Tony Rose or someone like that, and then you put them in a tag. You're maximizing.
Well, it must have worked to some degree to run 2 weeks worth of these type of matches. I mean, in a row, right? So, I mean, they're doing it pretty much in every town here for a couple weeks before we kind of change things up. The ladies are off to the next territory because you can't just beat that to death. So we're going to go to WRDW TV studios in Augusta here on March the 26th. Live Rasslin premiered on Channel 12, March 26th, 1956. Mark it on your calendars, guys, although you'd have to go to eBay to find a calendar from 56. But the first commentator was Don McIntyre, assisted by Lou Stratton. So Don McIntyre, am I reading this right? Don McIntyre was the first commentator of the Augusta TV?
Yes, you are. And it makes me wonder if maybe at this time Don was wanting to slow down a bit and just focus on promoting.
I'd be curious to get a look at the contracts of the wrestler who was promoting Augusta and how many points Don might have had in this particular city as well to sit here. Yeah. But no, you make a good point there. Is he slowing down? I mean, he's been headlining for quite a long time, and now all of a sudden our favorite hero is also our announcer, our TV announcer. But that's, you get your face on the TV more that way, I suppose.
Oh, exactly. You're getting yourself exposure where I don't know if Augusta even had the access to Atlanta TV back then. So if they didn't, they're seeing, the commentator who, at least for the time being, may be the lead babyface.
Right.
And that's kind of, that's unique in itself. But I'm thinking that Don might be starting to be on the lookout for the next lead babyface probably around this time. I don't, it's going to eventually come.
All good things must come to an end eventually. And unfortunately, that's going to be tried and true in the wrestling business time and time again. But it's at least Don didn't put his name in the TV. Championship Wrestling with Johnny Powers was what they called it here in Cleveland. So, I mean,
or Bruiser Bedlam.
Well, there you got that too. So,
yeah, Johnny Powers. Yeah, JP self-promoted himself right into killing Cleveland, I think.
He's an interesting cat if you follow the story. If you lived local, there's a lot out there on Johnny Powers. But he was once upon a time, he was the man. He was, as my dad called him, the Hulk Hogan of the Cleveland territory.
Exactly. He absolutely was.
But right now, Don McIntyre has been the Hulk Hogan of the Georgia territory for quite a while, and we're going to see what happens with Don moving forward. We're also going to move forward here to March the 30th in Atlanta. Chief Big Heart still here, defeating Jerry Graham, avenging that loss in the Indian strap match from 1955. It almost took a year.
You go.
Took about a year, but Chief Big Heart getting his win back, and Graham again had disappeared for a little bit, but he's back in Georgia. So it's like they do everything they can for Jerry, and it's like when they run out of ideas, they send him away, or he finds something else to go do for a few months, and then he's back.
Yeah, and right now we're getting to about a year away from him that we know of becoming Dr. Jerry Graham, and he'll be in New York. There's going to be a certain riot there with him and Dick the Bruiser. And there will be indeed. Oh yeah, Rocca and Carpentier, I believe it was.
I think you're right. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about Carpentier. I don't know if we're going to get to him on this episode. We're going to try. We're going to continue on to April 20th. Argentina Rocca back in town. Another victory for Rocca here. Talk about another guy in New York. Rocca over Jack O'Brien here. So boy, the heavy hitters are coming through Georgia, are they not? I mean, everybody you can think of. And if you haven't heard the name yet, stay tuned.
Exactly. Rocca, we were talking about Hulk Hogan's of the areas and the towns. Rocca could fit in right into that category in New York. And in the Northeast in particular, because he was hot as a pistol. He was.
You talk about hot as a pistol. The town of Columbus here in Georgia must have been doing pretty damn fantastic. I'm sure a lot of people now we would see, as me and Jamie cover sometimes some of the cities, depending on the week, they wouldn't have obviously not the same card as the Omni, but maybe a lackluster card at times that some of the guys aren't in that city or whatever the case may be. So you're probably thinking here in the 1950s, especially, well, geez, what were they putting on these other shows? And so I wanted to bring up an example here because we talked about April 20th just now, Argentina Rocca defeating Jack O'Brien in Atlanta. Let's fast forward a little later in the week, April the 26th. I pulled this up last night, just an example of what was going on in the other towns. Columbus, another 3-match card. And Columbus, I got some figures here from 1956. So Columbus was drawing anywhere from 12 to 1,600 fans, which is pretty solid for a secondary town.
Yes.
But the big point I'm trying to make here is on the April 26th card in Columbus, Georgia, you got Rocky Colombo over Harry Lewis, Chief Big Heart again over Dr. Jerry Graham by DQ, winning 2-1. And in the main event, much like Atlanta, Argentina Rocca over Jack O'Brien. So Rocca made the rounds. It wasn't just Atlanta proper. Rocca did the loop. And so Columbus, one of the bigger towns, but not Atlanta, but it gets Argentina Rocca. And you have to imagine they drew well that night.
Exactly. You're getting a guy like Rocca that you would think a lot of the people that would come in, let's say Verne, let's say, people like that from the DuMont network, they just show up in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would just, and then they'd be gone the next morning. Now, here's Argentina Rocca. He's making the loop here in Atlanta. He's, here in Georgia. Right. He's showing up here in Columbus, and it's a, just a 3-match show, but I'm sure the matches were probably long. And, the figure, they were drawing 1,600 weekly. They were anywhere from 12 to 1,600. That's, for a show like that, that's good attendance. That's really good attendance for the time.
Yeah.
Especially they could have been piggybacking off of the new TV or, 'cause again, I'm not sure about the reach on the television stations from Atlanta or anywhere else. But I would say with Rocca, it had to be pushed through some sort of a television feed. That would be one that, I don't know, you could probably draw through the old posters and stuff.
Sure, a poster on every pole, I would imagine, here with Rocca coming to town.
If you had Rocca coming to town, you might have 2 on every pole, 1 north and south, or maybe 4 east and west.
Well, what I wanted to do was dispel the rumors that these big names from TV and from abroad would come in and do Atlanta and leave. Now, that might be the case if a guy was only in town for a day. I mean, you're going to work the big town. But again, Rocca here for at least a week because he comes back the following week in Atlanta too, April the 27th. And this time he's got Jerry Graham in the ring, and Rocca going to win that one by countout. That's funny. Two guys that really were headliners eventually here in the New York territory. But here in Atlanta, we get it Rocca over Jerry Graham by countout. So it was, they really utilized Rocca proper here. They give him a 2 straight fall win over Jack O'Brien, and they bring him back as the big main draw against one of the familiar top heels of the territory in Jerry Graham.
Exactly. And that just shows to me, you know, like you said, here in a year, this is going to the Garden. This could be going to Boston now. And here we are in Atlanta. Yeah, Jerry Graham's, he is still a top dog here. And here's Rocca. Rocca's not getting a clean win. He's just getting a count-out win over him. So there you go. You know, you're keeping Graham hot. Rocca's going to roll back up north, and the stage is being set. Right. I'm sure somebody up north is looking down here in Atlanta and seeing this talent.
Well, these guys are traveling through. I'm sure word of mouth. Hey, you might want to give this guy a try. He's huge in Atlanta, and so Jerry Graham's going to get his time's coming here very shortly. Here, we won't be able to talk about him a whole lot moving forward in Georgia, anyway.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
Hey guys, Ray Russell back to talk to you about all the new and exciting audio and video podcasts we've been putting together over at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. As a self-funded brand, this entire ship is powered by our patrons. It's your support that keeps all of these wonderful shows going here at WrestleCopia. And with that said, I wanted to mention that we now have 3 major tiers with tons of Patreon-exclusive next-level content for our Patreon supporters. And it all starts with the $5 all-access tier, which gets you early access to many of the weekly podcasts, monthly digital downloads for your viewing and reading pleasure, the insanely detailed show notes for the Wrestling Memory Grenade Regional Rasslin, and the OG Monday Warfare podcast, plus random bonus video drops, archived old-school audio watch-alongs from the early years of the brand. It is a whole lot of fun wrapped under the all-access tier for only $5, but things get even hotter with the VIP Superfan tier. For just a few dollars more, you get everything already mentioned in the all-access tier, plus as part of the VIP tier, a whole new slew of videocast series where it's not just your typical watch-alongs. Sure, we laugh, we have fun, but we're also breaking down the history, the context, and the why behind what you're seeing. And as part of the VIP tier, you have access to Dan Gennety's Pro Resu Academy videocast, the Coliseum videocast, and the Monday Warfare videocast, Raw vs. Nitro, breaking down the history of the Monday Night War. Plus, you also get the Memphis 1985 folder of goodies and all show notes for the Pro Academy podcast and Gene's retro review show. Lots to be had there at the VIP tier. But wait, there's more. For those WrestleCopia backers who crave even more from the brand, we bring you yet another level of content fit for a warrior, because it is indeed the ultimate tier, which gives you everything from the all-access pass, everything from the VIP tier, plus you will receive access to the big ones video series, featuring a lengthy look and discussion into some of the biggest pay-per-views, super shows, and other events from throughout wrestling history. It's also a great place to keep up with the big events that coincide with the Monday Warfare videocast and so many other big events from years gone by. You'll also have access to the newest big hit to the Copia brand. I'm talking about Regional Rasslin Unreal, the video series, Get ready for the next level in Regional Rasslin as we dissect territory history in video form. Watch along with us. But still, even more for your money, guys. You'll also receive access to the Treasure Chest, which offers patrons the unique opportunity to download and watch select rarities from wrestling history. And for those of you who are wondering what we offer, are contemplating joining a paid Patreon membership, or simply a curious lurker, a reminder there's a free tier at our Patreon that you can join as well. Remember, guys, no subscription, cancel any time, but I think you'll like the content that we're offering there for any budget you may have. And you can sign up right now, patreon.com/WrestleCopia, or look for the QR code where available. We appreciate your support in helping us pay the bills to keep the WrestleCopia Podcast Network running and enabling us to continue to bring you all the quality programming that we offer. We continue on May the 11th in Atlanta. Buddy Rogers in town, defeating Chief Big Heart. Semi-main event for old Buddy, because the main event, Don McIntyre. So we talked about maybe he's starting to slowly wind down, but not quite yet. Headlining, Don McIntyre defeating Jerry Graham. Graham can't seem to get the fair shake of a win here over any of the top-named talent, but if you're just that damn good and people just want to see you lose, you don't have to win necessarily that often in order to draw.
Right. I mean, as Bob Root pointed out, you could lose every night and keep your heat.
Right.
And you still be a main eventer. And Jerry Graham, it's become, as you said, word of mouth and everything. It's becoming known. This guy's good.
Yeah.
You could beat him every night. And the the fans still want to see him get beat some more. And
it's a fine line in being talented in this business specifically, because there are guys who are good and you don't want them to take your spot. So you're not going to go back and tell the boss in New York or wherever your big town is that you work for on the daily. You don't want to go and put this guy over because you don't want him to come in and quote unquote replace you someday. But
right.
Then there are talents that are so good. You go, I could make money, a lot of money working with this guy. And so those are the guys, when you're that damn good, that's the guys, the word of mouth will travel. And we're going to see that here with Jerry Graham before too long. So,
oh yeah, I was just going to point one thing out.
Yes.
McIntyre and Graham were so hot, and the fans wanted to see Graham beaten so bad that a talent like Buddy Rogers was a semi-main event that night.
Oh, that's a good call.
Against the proven commodity like Chief Bigheart.
And that kind of explains, too, why we don't see Thesz coming through as often with the world title, although a lot of people blame Thesz for picking and choosing where he wanted to work by this point in time as well. But it really feels like we kind of don't need that NWA title as often as some of the other territories may need it to as a crutch, so to speak, because they've got some world beaters here in their main events. We're going to move ahead May the 23rd in Augusta. Irish Danny McShane in town over Don McIntyre for the held-up North American title. A lot of people credit Danny McShane as the master of the blade, the inventor of the blade job.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Danny McShane. Big name in Texas. And he's coming through Atlanta I would imagine before he heads to Houston. I mean, for guys my age, I remember Danny McShane as a referee for Paul Bosch in Houston. Yep. And, only later did I learn that this guy was, if Bill Watts needed a true blue Dr. Scarlet, Danny McShane would have been his Huckleberry.
I can see that, yeah. But what's funny is watching a lot of these quote unquote old timers move from the wrestler to the referee role, and if you weren't part of the era where they were working in the ring, you'd never know it. I'd never know that Bronco Lubitsch was once upon a time, a top heel in certain territories, or as you said, Danny McShane or Bulldog Pleaches, or some of these guys. You never realized that these guys were wrestlers once. No, that guy couldn't have been. Really? Because
Frank Morrell.
Yeah, Frank Morrell wouldn't go away. Oh
no.
So you have here in your notes, May 25th of 56 marks the beginning of a relationship between the city of Marietta and the Atlanta office. And we know that's going to go on till the end of times in Georgia Championship Wrestling circa 1984 before Ole has to flip the name and whatnot. So Marietta, Georgia, going to be a big part of the Georgia office territory moving forward for the next nearly 30 years.
And one of the greatest things I would imagine that this partnership could have given us was Bob Armstrong.
Amen to that. Absolutely. And that'll play into the 1970s Georgia War as well. The Bullet, Bob Armstrong, and obviously we're going to get to Ray Gunkel here very shortly. He's going to be he did a little one-off or whatever. It's been a while now since we talked about Ray, but he's coming back, guys, and he's not going to leave. At least not until we'll get there when we get there.
No. That possibly could be the time where Mr. McIntyre finds his guy.
I think so. I need to find a replacement before I can step down. So we'll see how that plays out. But June the 29th in Atlanta, it's Don McIntyre still on top over Danny McShane in a knockout of a 6th round boxing match. So we're doing the gimmicks. And Georgia had a lot of gimmick matches. They seem to be a certain half dozen. We see the loop of the strap matches, the Texas death matches, and we haven't seen results on this in a while, but they've been using this one longer maybe than most of them, and it seems pretty obvious, right? I mean, boxing and wrestling have been put together, now boxing a little more on the level, depending on the era and the promotion of the boxing world, but boxing and wrestling seem to go hand in hand, whether wrestling's a work or not. The old Boxer Wrestler magazines, things of that nature, the competitive sports, if you will. So it only seems natural and fitting that one of the gimmick matches you would have would be a boxing match.
Exactly. And then you have a guy like McShane here in this boxing match that could easily add some color to it, I guess you could say.
Sure.
McShane was one of those, I'm sure, that would probably say, hey, Don, try to get me hard way. Get me over the eye.
Yeah, these guys.
And he just beat him.
And as much as McShane had bladed by this point in time, I have to imagine that maybe it wouldn't be too hard to get him hard way here. And,
about like Manny Fernandez back in the day. All you had to do was touch his forehead.
There you go. Well, knockout. McIntyre makes it. So I'm assuming McShane's not long for the territory. He comes in, gets himself over. He beats Don McIntyre for the North American title, not the Southern title, the North American title. Maybe another makeshift or invented title belt, I do believe, is specifically for this feud. I'm not really sure. I'd have to do some digging.
Oh, I would too. And with the name North American title, it was all over the place.
Oh, they threw that around, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You'd have to find the right timeline for it.
Good luck with that.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
that's a big tree right there.
Well, it's fun to see McShane come through for a few weeks, though, a couple months or whatever the case may be, and he's going to lose out to McIntyre here, and I'm assuming what will be the blow-off boxing match. We'll see if they bring that back again. July the 12th in Augusta, Zebra Kid defeating Jerry Graham in a mask versus loser leaves town match. Now, we all know when you have to leave town, you don't leave town forever. They're actually going to bring back the next night. You pointed out in Marietta, following the Augusta show, Zebra Kid defeating Jerry Graham, forcing him to leave town. The next night in Marietta, Zebra Kid and Jerry Graham actually team up, losing to Don and Red McIntyre. So I guess the people in Marietta hadn't gotten wind yet that Jerry Graham had left town.
Exactly. I don't know if they're like a week or two late.
The bicycle.
It was just funny to me that they have this loser leave town versus mask stipulation, and then the next night here they are slapping hands.
That intrigues me more than the fact that Jerry's still here, and the fact that they had such a heated issue that it was the mask of the Zebra Kid versus Jerry Graham leaving town, and then they team up the next night in a completely different city. So you have to imagine some different stories are being told here between Augusta and Marietta.
Exactly. I don't know if maybe it was a TV angle that caused this match in Augusta, but
right. Yeah, no, that's a good point though. That maybe it was a TV angle specific to Augusta. As we continue on, moving on to July 27th in Atlanta, Eddie Gossett, the future Eddie Graham, teaming with Art Nelson over Jack Bentz and Gene Stanley. So not quite Graham yet, but back in Georgia again, as is Art Nelson. We haven't seen him in a little bit, and they are a dominant tag team here from July through the month of September in 1956. We've also got September 28th, Atlanta, Wild Bull Curry over Art Nelson to win the Southern title. So some different names in the Southern title picture here in the fall of 56. Speaking of the fall, October 5th, Bobby Weaver and Cyclone Anaya. Good to see him here in the territory over Eddie Gossett and Chris Tolis. October 18th in Augusta, Red McIntyre over Ike Eakins by disqualification. I haven't seen that name in a while. Ike Eakins doing the job to Big Red McIntyre. Also, November 2nd, the McIntyres proper, that's Don and Red, defeating the Blassies. Billy Blassie back, the team with Freddie. We haven't seen Freddie's name in a bit. The McIntyres and Blassies, it just won't go away, the feud that never ends. Special referee here for November 2nd, promoter Paul Jones, former wrestler himself, Paul Jones, going to step in here and say, we're going to make sure this match has a proper outcome. Apparently the referees perhaps being abused or not doing their job properly in prior matches. The McIntyres and Blassies here, November 2.
Exactly. I mean, nobody in Georgia has the credibility over time that Paul Jones does. Mm-hmm. You know, he is the constant here in Georgia since, for like 30 years, 20, 30 years. Yeah. And if there's anybody that could control that ring, especially in a hot feud like this, it's been going on since the days of Haystack Small Noon.
Haystack Small Noon.
You got Paul Jones there. And the McIntyres go over, and I would say the fans go home happy that night.
Yeah, they would have to. And maybe the Blassies or Fred Blassie, he goes away for a little bit here as well after such a major card. So Blassie maybe getting his toes wet in another territory after this for just a little bit anyway. I know Blassie's going to be back here before too long as we move into a new year of 1957 now. We've a new dawn, a new horizon is upon us, 1957, and a new tag team has arrived in Atlanta. A team by the name of Mark and Don Lewin, who would go on to become a very legendary tag team in the world of pro wrestling in the 50s and 60s. Mark Lewin, I'm very familiar with. Don Lewin, I didn't get to see a whole lot, nearly as much of, obviously, but they are here. They have arrived, beating Jackie Nichols and Red McIntyre here January the 4th, and you would see that a lot for the decades to come in the territories. January is specifically right after New Year. You would see a lot of new talent begin to trickle into some of the territories, and so the Lewins are going to be here for the next several months, and they're going to be utilized as the top tag team moving forward for the next several months as well.
Exactly. And you have, Mark Lewin, tag team guy right up through probably till he goes to Australia. Mm-hmm. He's teaming with his brother Don, and later on he's going to go to New York and to Florida with Don Curtis. Here they are, new hot heel tag team here in Georgia. Mark's still with us, from what I understand.
Last I heard.
Yeah, and of course, this is another name you're going to hear off and on in Georgia right on through to 1980. So Mark, he's just a young kid here, but he's main eventing in tag teams. He was a good hand. He could be the ultimate scientific baby face, and he could be a maniac.
Certainly, he can even be a purple haze at some point.
Purple haze. There you go, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. So we continue on into 1957 now. Atlanta, January the 11th. Wilbur Snyder, the master of the abdominal stretch over Ike Eakins. I love saying that name. I love when you put Ike Eakins in the results. I get to say his name. It just flows off the tongue.
He's just an old raw boned heel.
See that name pop up quite often in the Journeyman of the Territories. February 1st in 57 in Atlanta, Don McIntyre over Jerry Graham. Still feuding, as you put in your notes. So McIntyre has two big programs, the Blassies and Jerry Graham, and depending on who's in the territory at the time, we cycle back and forth. Don McIntyre can't get any rest. No wonder he's looking for a replacement, perhaps.
He's probably doggone. He's probably out of gas at this point, going every night against the Jerry Graham and the Blassies and everything, and
it's tough being a headliner, man. You know, a lot of these guys, they eventually wanted out. Bruno wanted out. Thesz even wanted out at some point in time. So these guys, they did their time on top, and it's like, okay, I made my money, and man, this is it's hard being the main event all the time, I guess.
Yeah. February and booking as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to try to keep figuring out something new, something that's going to bring the fans back. You don't want to hurt the credibility of your main babyface attraction, especially when they're a long-term attraction like Don McIntyre here is in Georgia. He's the only mainstay here in the city as far as babyfaces go.
Yes.
Here's an interesting one you have here in your notes. February the 8th in Atlanta, Guy LaRose drew Mr. X, assuming a masked man, Mr. X. Guy LaRose, for those of you who don't know, the real name of Hans Schmidt. But this is not actually Hans Schmidt. This is somebody they gave the name Guy LaRose to, which is, it interests me because we're going to see that happen all the way through the 1970s. I don't know if this is the same Guy LaRose that we're going to see 20 years later, but somebody loved the name and would use it over and over again here. And it's a legitimate name of Hans Schmidt, his real name, the German character. But they would use it on some of these other talents that would come through the tier. Very weird.
Now, Larry Mazik told me one time who this was, at least the version that went through St. Louis and Kansas City.
Okay.
I cannot remember the name, and looking it up in some databases, the name just took me right to Hans Schmidt, of course.
Right.
So if anybody listening would know who this Guy LaRose was, or any Guy LaRose through the 70s when Hans Schmidt was working, give us a holler. Heck, our curiosity is getting the best of us here.
Absolutely. I always like to identify, and I'm sure somebody may have done some digging in the past and already might have an answer for it. If Matisic knows, maybe he spoke to somebody else, or maybe Herb Simmons. That's another name I can try to contact him. But
Herb,
That'll be interesting. Now, again, I don't know if there were multiple Guy LaRoses. Very weird, very odd. This is kind of like a kayfabe name or something like we just use as a undercover name or something. I'm not sure. I think I did look at some point. There was a guy named Guy Flowers who worked as Guy LaRose. Again, I don't know if that's the same guy as here, the same guy as St. Louis. We'll have to wait and see how that pans out. But we're going to move ahead. April the 19th in Atlanta. Verne Gagne, the legendary figure from the AWA, which has not yet been created. More on that moving forward. But Verne coming in here from the DuMont network in Chicago recently. Verne was a huge babyface star there on the television screen. And here he is in April 19th scoring a victory over Babe Zaharias.
Yes. Verne making these rounds, making another visit to Atlanta. And it's not going to be long before the seeds are going to be planted for him to buy into Minneapolis and what goes into the AWA.
Right.
The events coming up soon in this year is going to play a big role into that.
Absolutely.
Into that with Verne. Yeah, here he is beating the old veteran Babe Zaharias,
who is still with us at this point, and we'll talk more about Babe moving forward and his demise.
Yes.
But we continue on April the 26th, Atlanta. NWA World Heavyweight Champion Lou Thesz is back, so I think you're on to something. About once a year, it feels like right now. Lou coming through just to prove he's still here. The NWA still exists. The world title hasn't budged, and it's Lou Thesz over Red McIntyre in a match that goes reportedly 25 minutes. So, I think it was last May or so we saw Lou, and he's back again just about a year later.
Yeah, and here he is beating Red McIntyre, who we haven't seen a lot of, or he's obviously been there, but he's been in the semi-mains.
Yeah,
he's been in the mid-card, and it's been, like you said, been close to a year since we've seen Lou go through here. You wonder, why did McIntyre? Why wasn't he in this mix? I don't think we've ever seen Don McIntyre go for the World Heavyweight Championship, and he was the top baby face. I guess the logic was to bring him in, put him over against, Red is a former Southern Heavyweight Champion, so there's some meat there. But it's always gotten to me up to this point that Lou he's not gone head up with Don McIntyre. Now, maybe it's a deal where Don doesn't want to, maybe he thinks losing to the world champion would diminish him. I'm not sure.
It's the chase, I think, and it almost feels like they'd be building to that, and I don't want to spoil anything. I don't know if we ever get there with Thesz and Don McIntyre, but it is fun to see his brother getting the title, baby brother getting the title shot, or maybe I'm not sure how the age works here between Red and Don. I've never dug into their birth years, but
I haven't either.
Red McIntyre, is it fair to say, would you say that Red was kind of like Lanny Poffo to Don's Randy Savage, though? Don was the big figure, and if you're going to use me, you're going to use my brother kind of deal, because we see all the other talent come and go, but Red McIntyre he's a mainstay. And that's essentially because his brother is a mainstay on top as the world champion.
Exactly. And, Red has a good position, of course. And you make a very good point there. That could be the Lanny to the Randy. Randy had it all to draw.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll put it like this. In the early 80s, had he not been outlaw, it's hard to tell. The ascent of Randy Savage would have been just huge. I mean, that's one person that Sam told Larry before Larry branched out.
Right.
That he would have loved to have had, but he couldn't have him. And Sam set the precedent because when Dick the Bruiser went outlaw, he went against the Sheik, he didn't use Bruiser, and Bruiser was one of the biggest draws in that city. Getting back to point here, Red had his spot, and he was there for his brother. His brother was Randy, had it all, the top dog, and he was there. Maybe like in the WWF sense in the 80s, a bigger role than Lanny.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But kind of an ICW.
Yeah, well, I mean, like he's had his little time in the sun as the Southern champion. He's certainly been in tag team main events with Brother Don. So Red's been around for quite a while here in the territory at this point. The fans are very familiar with him. So to see him get a world title shot isn't necessarily the most outlandish of ideas here. Unfortunately, he was unsuccessful, but he does go 25 minutes with the world champion. Lou Thesz will retain. Red McIntyre is not in your history books as a former world champ, at least any credible history books anyway. May the 3rd in Atlanta, Nick Roberts, the father of Nicola Roberts, a.k.a. Baby Doll. Nick Roberts here in Atlanta, taking on the Great Mitsu. Also, this Guy LaRose fellow battling, newcomer to the territory, Dick the Bruiser.
Oh, yeah. So I'd say Mr. LaRose may have had a long night.
Yeah,
Dick wasn't someone you'd see arm drags and leg scissors from, even then. No. This guy was Dick the Bruiser was Dick the Bruiser. Be it 57, be it 87 when he was. And you have Baby Doll's dad, Nick Roberts.
Yeah.
Prominent promoter out in Lubbock, Texas, I believe. He was going up against the Great Mitsu, and I was wondering, because I'd never got a chance to look at this, could that be Mitsu Arakawa?
Mitsu, well, the name, I mean, obviously now we're obviously also we get stereotypical names they use time and time again here in regards to Japanese names and things, because in the silliness of the Americans, all Japanese are the same, right? So whatever the nonsense I think to Mid-Atlantic and in the early 80s when they were promoting Kabuki coming in, and then they don't get Kabuki, and so they bring Mr. Pogo in as Kabuki with a wig on. We didn't even know Kabuki had hair, so why did we need to put a fucking wig on Mr. Pogo?
Exactly.
Thankfully, he takes the wig off before too long, and But I do believe Arakawa. I know he comes through in the late 50s here, so that very well could be the Great Mitsu. Could be Mitsu Arakawa here, because I'm pretty sure he was coming through Georgia here around 1957. So I think you're onto something. May the 17th in Atlanta, Argentina Rocca is back, this time scoring a victory over newcomer to the territory, Dick the Bruiser. So Rocca has worked with Jerry Graham and Dick the Bruiser here in 1957 Atlanta, and we're going to bring all of that up to New York not too long after this. So somebody saw something somewhere. This is kind of like practice trial runs, if you will.
And, here we go. Dick the Bruiser doing a job. And that's something.
How about that?
Yeah. And that's something that you're not going to see very often.
No, money's got to talk, no doubt about it.
Money's going to talk, and I guarantee you that on this night in Atlanta, money talked big. If you had Rocca, and then you had a guy like the Bruiser that he was already gaining this reputation. Mm-hmm. And it's a legitimate reputation. About 6 years later, they're going to find out in some bar, Mr. Alex Karras and his bunch will find out.
Certainly.
Dick's crazy.
Dick is crazy. Well, I look forward. We'll talk about that. Maybe we'll fit that into the Georgia story somehow at some point.
Oh, yeah.
We like taking our little side trips into the other worlds of professional wrestling, the territories and other stories and things of that nature. We jump around when we can. Got to keep people guessing. We're going to do one more result here this week on the program before we wrap things up, and we're going to kick it off hot on the next episode. We'll talk about that at the end of the program. But June the 14th here, so covering about 2 full years of wrestling action this week on the program. Rip Hawk, the profile. Rip Hawk,
yes, sir.
Battling Oni Wiki Wiki. What a awesome name that was. And also on the card, June the 14th, Freddie Blassie back in town again, returning to Georgia once more. Fred Blassie scoring a win over Al Massey.
Yes. So Freddie went out of town for a little bit. I don't know if I don't know exactly where, but he's back here in Atlanta. I do know at some point he does take over the book in Atlanta, but I think it's a little later on. He's beaten Al Massey and
right. And I think if I remember my years correct in Blassie's run on top, I think he did a lot of Nashville circuit here around this time.
Oh, he did, yeah.
So that might be where he's coming back from at this point in time. I'd have to look, again, like you said, we'd have to look up exactly where Freddie's coming back from this time around, because he does make the rounds. But I think around this time period he was doing the Nashville circuit. I think he does a little Gulf Coast too, but it's mostly Nashville.
Yeah, he does. I remember him being talked about as going into the Gulf Coast and in Nashville. So he was making all the money for Nick Gold's.
Yeah.
You know all that.
you got to draw like Freddie Blassie. You take it while you can get it. But Blassie back here in Georgia once again. We'll talk more about Freddie's run here in 1957 and moving forward for as long as he's here anyway. Enjoy it while it lasts, guys, because Blassie's going to go on to much bigger things in his career. But yes, we're going to wrap it up right here, guys. Don't want to get too long on the episode, but I do want to promote what's coming up at the beginning of the next episode, Rick. We're going to talk about ABC, that's the booking company, pulling away eventually here from the NWA in the mid-1950s due to what we will be kicking off the show with next time around. That's the Lou Thesz, Edouard Carpentier scandal that took place right here on June 14th. We talked about Fred Blassie and Al Massey. Also, June the 14th in Chicago, it was Thesz versus Carpentier, and in a matchup that led to, well, let's just say shenanigans that's going to cause a lot of territories to pull away from the NWA eventually here and recognize Carpentier as the world champion. And I don't want to spoil it too much. We're going to go into it deep at the beginning of the next episode, but just really quickly, your take on what this did to the NWA, what this did to the world of wrestling.
Well, what it did, like you said, it was controversial, very, very controversial, because the holy grail of the entire alliance was the world heavyweight champion. Mm-hmm. And now you have this deal to where some people are saying, well, hey, Lou didn't lose it by pinfall or submission. He's still the champion. Right. And then there's some people, which were probably the traditionalists in the business, saying, for saying that. And then the other people are saying, hey, Carpentier, Lou can continue. That's a world title change. That's a loss.
Right.
So what happened, a lot of these people that had faith in the alliance, because even though things are going well for the first 8 or 9 years, it's still frail. There's still not a whole lot of trust built on this. And, Paul Jones, Don McIntyre, as you're going to find out on our next episode, is going to take the side of Carpentier.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see some of the territories, quote unquote, defect from the NWA here in the late 1950s, and we're going to talk all about that.
It about killed the alliance.
It did, and I got a few pages of notes here on that particular scandal and everything, the fallout from it, and we're going to continue to follow that as we move on. So we're setting up the Georgia War of the 1970s, but right now there's kind of a war within the NWA over who is the world champion, and we're going to talk about that at the very top of the next program. Stay tuned, guys. It's a very legendary story. You guys can go look it up yourself right now, or if you're lazy or you just want to listen to somebody else talk about it, we'll be right here with you guys next time around.
Hey, that's one thing. That's one thing that we're two of the best at. We can talk you right into this thing. We can talk you right through it.
Yeah, if you guys don't want to try to spend hours trying to navigate and figure this out in your own time, we've already spent countless hours of our sad lives putting it together for you.
Believe you me, I'm not going to lie about my age. I'm 53, and I probably spent about 43 years looking through stuff like this and looking through magazines and everything. And it may be a sad life, but me and Ray, it may be sad, but we don't know it yet.
Now, I lie to myself quite often, Rick. Is what I do. No, but we appreciate you guys being here. And Rick, I appreciate you doing this with me again. And like I said, I promise, guys, we won't be too long before the next episode of
Absolutely
the
not.
Georgia story of the 1950s right now is where we're at. We're going to pick up where we left off, June the 14th, 1957. Talk a little bit about the NWA World Title before we jump back into things here in the state of Georgia.
Absolutely.
This week, guys, we're going to wrap it all up. So I want to thank you so much, Rick, for being here, guys. We'll be back soon. We've got more Georgia Rasslin and so much more on the way here for Regional Rasslin, where we talk the territories. Thank you, Rick.
Hey, thank you, Ray. And for all you listeners, buckle up because we are just getting started.
Just getting started, guys. More Regional Rasslin around the corner.